Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Ham Nation is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Are you hiring? With ZipRecruiter.com, you can post to 200-plus job boards, including social networks, all with a single click. Screen, rate, and hire the right candidates fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/twit. By Icom. For more information, visit IcomAmerica.com/HamNation. And by DX Engineering. DX Engineering offers practically everything you need to outfit your shack, plus the fastest shipping in the industry. In-stock items ship the same day, Monday through Friday until 10 p.m. Eastern. For more information, visit DXEngineering.com/HamNation.
This is Ham Nation, episode number 290, March 8th, 2017. Bob presents the Chipstick. Good evening, everybody. You have your TV, your computer, your Roku, and your phone all tuned to Ham Nation. And we're here to have some fun and maybe learn something tonight. But we're here to talk about ham radio, and I hope that you enjoy it tonight. Let's see who all's going to be here. I do know Valerie is going to be here. And then we got George. George, how are you doing down in Mississippi? You didn't get any of that storm nonsense, did you?
Well, I got a little bit of it here, enough to throw 2 breakers at a transmitter site. So I got in on some of the fun.
Yeah, that's always a problem for you. Getting in on the fun is going out and fixing a transmitter, but that's okay. That's okay. And Gordo, how you doing? Everything okay out on the coast? You're not having all that rain stuff anymore, are you?
Oh, no. We're wall-to-wall sunshine. This Saturday, Lincoln Ham Fest in Lincoln, Nebraska. They're going to have a great time, and I hope they have a lot of sunshine. And then a week after that, the 18th in Scottsdale, Arizona, they've got a ham fest. And then 2 weeks after that, I head for Las Vegas for the Nevada State Ham Fest. So that's going to be a fun one. But you know, Bob, the biggie, Hamvention, Greene County Fairgrounds. I'll be there. You'll be there. Back to you, Bob.
Yep, be sure to check your GPS because it's not in Dayton anymore. Well, talking about that as we get along. Don, I understand that you're going to join us in Dayton. Don Wilbanks, the famous Don Wilbanks. Is that right? You're going to be at Dayton?
Yes. If the creek don't rise and however the rest of that old saw goes, yes, I will be in Dayton. I will also be this weekend, speaking of Hamfest, I will be in Rain, Louisiana. That's the frog capital of the world, right there by Lafayette, Louisiana. It's the Rain Ham Fest. It's the Friday and Saturday Ham Fest. And on Friday, because it's South Louisiana, they got a crawfish boil and a Cajun Fado dough with the, that's a party, by the way, with the Cajun music and everything. And it's a huge blowout. I'll be going up there Saturday morning. And our friend Emmett from Radio Waves, he and the lovely Rochelle will be there, as well as our buddy Don, W6 GPS. He's driving in on his way right now. So it's going to be a big ham fest and always a fun one. I'll see George has 5085 on the Icom there behind him. That, of course, is the big powerful WTWW shortwave blowtorch at 5085. And also 12.105 with that monster signal into Africa. We're covering half the world tonight, and they're bringing you the audio for Ham Nation. So we're going to have a great show. It's being seen everywhere on the internet. It's being heard worldwide on shortwave. And here we are riding the wave, Bob, you and me and everybody else.
That's right. I tuned in the other night, and there was George. It was really, really good. I hope they replay that again because they got to hear some of the history of George, W5JDX. It was really good, George. That was great. And then, Don, what is it? Second Tuesday you're on, Don? When are you on WTWW?
I am. I'm on live with Ted Randall every second Tuesday of the month, the second Tuesday of every month on live. And there you go. We sit around and we talk about Ham Nation a little bit. We talk about Amateur Radio Newsline a little bit. We talk about ham radio. We talk about the philosophy of the world, and we solve all the problems of the world right there on WTWW on Tuesday night, me and Ted. And you should listen. If you don't listen, there's something wrong with you, and I don't want you in the house. In fact, if you don't listen, we're going to call the law on you. And I believe we have a picture of the lawman we're going to send after you, I think. Brian, why don't you pop that up real quick? That's right. Why should you watch Ham Nation, or why should you listen to WTWW? Because we got a law in this town. That's why. Don't get sideways of little Tyler right there.
That's great. And of course, on Saturday night, every Saturday night, we fire up the theater organ, and gosh, we're going to do, I think, show about number 23 or 4 here coming up Saturday. So I love to play for everybody and get lots of reports back from all over the globe. It's really amazing. So WTWW is doing it right. And we hope that you're listening there. Well, I'll be back to you in just a little bit, because you know what I've been working on for the past, I don't know how many weeks, almost going into months, but we've got our pine board project happening. And, oh, buddy, tonight we're actually going to build something, and we're going to turn it on. We're building about a 250-volt DC power supply, so don't go away. But we'll come back up here in the show a little bit, and we're going to be ready to go. So in the meantime, let's run over and see what Gordo's got doing. Gordo, you got some shorts for us, is that right? I'm talking about pictures.
We do. This is part 2, all about HF operation. And March is HF month. And technician class on up, all classes of ham radio licenses have HF privileges. Some get a little bit more than others. And we hope all of you will consider going HF. And our focus this month is HF Mobile. And we're going to be talking about fixed-tuned multi-HF mobile antennas. We'll talk about the motorized ones next week. But right now, let's jump in and talk about the fixed-tune antennas that many times we can use on a additional ham radio band, and we'll show you how. Well, last week we talked about these fixed-tuned single-band whips, and when you want to go to another band, whoa, stop the car, get out, unscrew one, screw in the other one, and now you're back on. But I want you to know that you can listen quite easily on an alternate band no matter which of these whips you have on. May not be quite as sensitive, but there you go. Same thing with the diamond antenna. We had a lot of questions about the diamond antenna. And in talking to some of the diamond folks, they tell me there's a lot of magic and a lot of shunt feeding going on within the silver base of that antenna. So it always looks like a good 50 ohm match. And that's very important, as we're going to see in just a few moments when we talk about HF antennas. For 10 meters, if you had, this is the MFJ stainless steel, about 8 sections, maybe 7 sections, sells for about $60, but it's a goodie. It's a stainless steel whip, and you can put it up for 8 feet for 10 meters, 11 feet for 15 meters, 16 feet for the 20-meter band. That's about as much as you can pull up and be mobile in rolling down the highway. But if you want 40 meters, pull it all the way up, and you'll just sort of get to 40 meters. But it's a good product, and again, the MFJ products are sold by DX Engineering, or you can buy them direct. But I suggest go through DX because they know what it takes to get this antenna humming on your vehicle, one band at a time. So now let's take a look at this unique antenna. Let me tell you, Hamvention is going to be fun. It's going to be at a new location. Oh my gosh, a new location. What happens if it rains? Get over it, folks. It's going to be great. As emergency communicators, we can adapt to anything. So plan on being there. We're going to be there. See you for Hamvention in May. Anyway, these kids, KB3OQB, has her own type of mobile antenna, or maybe I should call it portable. So the single band whips have coil windings, and the real magic is at the base, where the coil many times goes to ground, just a slight coil to ground, and that's going to bring the feed point to 50 ohms. But quite frankly, these monoband whips with their very tightly wound coils do not have a real high Q, so they look naturally like a 50 ohm match, and you don't have to worry about it. Just make sure you have the right one that is screwed on. Here's a very popular Hustler series. The Hustler 400-watt series, that's, let's see, this one I think is a kilowatt. The 400-watters sell for about $33, and they come with the coil and the top whip. You get the mass for another $20 that can lay over. Or the kilowatts, the coils go for about $60. The big thing about the kilowatt, and I know not many of you are going to run a kilowatt mobile, is that the kilowatts give you a little wider, almost twice as much as band spread as the 400-watter. So if you can, and you're going for the Hustlers, get the big KW one. A little bit more expensive. Now, there's the 400-watter, and it's mounted nice and high, and this was a good performer, and this was at one of the ham fests that we attended, and he is quite satisfied. But when we go to a higher Q antenna, think of higher efficiency, lower losses with the air coil. This one is a fixed frequency, but as you can see, there's a little tap point, so the operator can drive during the day on 20 meters, and then at evening hours can go ahead and switch the coil tap down to 40 meters. This coil looks like it'll do 10 through 40 meters. And this is good. It's up nice and high. So remember, anytime we're talking about fixed tune antennas, you're thinking of X sub L, that's the inductive reactance down at the base, and X sub C, that's a capacitive reactance, and that's up at the tip whip. And when the capacitive reactance equals the inductive reactance, you have resonance. But the bigger the coils, the more narrow that resonance is going to be, and this is good. You really want a nice tight resonant antenna. Here's a good installation of a open coil antenna, and again, it's multi-band, but it's manually multi-band. When you want to go ahead and go to a new band, you take it down and you re-tap where that tap point is on the coil, and it's mounted up nice and high. Well, let's talk about the multi-band type of antennas where you tap in at the base. Anytime we base load a HF whip, we're going to induce a lot of current loss because, as you can see, the wires are quite small. So on an antenna like this, unless that whip is like 30 or 40 feet, which is way too tall to be driving down the road with, it's not going to be a great performer. Although it was a good performer for a local ground wave, and this one comes out of the Great Lakes area, and it worked, and we'll talk about mag mounts. Here's a very popular, which Don Arnold brought aboard about 20 years ago. Don, was it 30 years ago? This is the Outbacker. Don Arnold, W6 GPS, worked with the Australians to bring this over, and if ever you folks can find an Outbacker at the swap meet sites, let me know, and I'll probably scoop them all up. This one, you tune into each band. Again, it's multi-band, but it's not automatic. You got to stop the car and tune in by plugging in. And on the backside of this, one of the operators actually put where you'll be on the band with different inches of the tip whip. That's the X sub C. So the Outbacker is a great antenna. And that great Gordon, antenna really does well.
Let me tell you how good those Outbacker antennas were and still are. I had a Perth Plus on my pickup truck, and I talked on 20 meters, 100 watts to Antarctica from Mississippi with one of those things.
Whoa! Wow. Well, it's true. That Outbacker is quite a performer. And Don Arnold, well, you just ask Don. He'll tell you about all the great results that. I appreciate you telling us that, Don. So there's a testimonial. Ryan, let's go to the next shot. That is the OB, the Outbacker. Can't find them anymore. They've stopped importing them here, but I understand there may be something taking its place. If anybody in the chat room knows who or where, let me know. Here's the Outbacker on our communications van up in the high Sierras. It's off the left rear. As you can see, not much wind resistance at all. So that makes a nice manual multi-band antenna play and play well. Brian on the next shot. And the Outbacker can even play horizontal. Here's Ken, KB6EVR, and he rolls this at his setup, and no one can see it really from the street because it's relatively small. And he's got a big mag mount that's counterpoising that metal rail. That's the secret. If that was wood, it wouldn't work. But metal, it's a good performer. And he changes band just by going into the next tab. Here's like a Outbacker Junior wannabe. This comes in from overseas, and it's okay. But again, its feed point impedance is about 50 ohms. The Q is not real high. It's a relatively small antenna, and I've had one, and yes, it does get warm. So we recommend that you work with leading antenna experts, and at DX Engineering, there's about 6 of those guys that live and breathe HF, and 2 girls that live and breathe HF. So guys and girls at DX Engineering, they have you covered, and they are there not just to sell you an antenna first, but to find out how you're going to mount it and then give you suggestions. Here's the Hustlers again, and for $9, you can get that little mount that puts 3 of them, and 10 meters goes to the one on the left, 15 will go to the one on the right, 20 meters will go to the one in the center, and it's all done electronically, magically, in that resonance occurs in the proper antenna, and the other ones just look like a sort of a lazy load. So that's a good way to go for tri-band operation, and in this case, he doesn't have to stop the car as long as he's going to go for 10 meters, 20 meters, and in this case, it looks like he's got a 40-meter Hustler hanging off of that, and they're good performers. Now, another interesting HF antenna for mobile is from Comet, the UHV6, as well as Diamond, the V7, HV7S. Both Comet and Diamond have multi-loads, and if you look at that tall antenna, the tallest of the one, that's a loading coil on the top and a tip, and it's got some little extrusions around it, and it's a good performer. Happens to be on a mag mount, which we'll talk about shortly. Now, here's an antenna. I've been racking my brain trying to think who's the manufacturer back then. This was a Maritime Mobile special because it had individual rods that you could screw in and screw out for different bands, including marine bands, and you slid a little inductor coil housing back and forth to resonate it specifically on frequency, and it was a good performer. If anybody knows the name of that on the over his left shoulder, let me know. But it was a modest, good performer. Now, you don't have to buy an antenna. You can make them yourself, and we encourage you to, on the DX Engineering Library, boy, they got every book known to mankind, get the ARRL Antenna Handbook, and they also have mobile antennas and wind your own coils. There's 3 bands of operation, and this is a antenna for 160 meters. Well, 160 meters? Well, no problem. Don, you can get this up on that big black car of yours or mine, little 160-meter coil. But the lower you go in frequency, the more inductance you're going to need to cancel the capacitive reactance on the tip of the antenna. So there's your major load for the 160-meter. Now, Charlie with high Q is still making the very popular motorized high Q antennas, but if ever you find one of the manual ones, I like it for demonstrating in class because I can roll the antenna resonance up and down by loosening this knob and going up and down on the shaft, and students can actually hear how tight the resonant point is on the high Q. They're now out of Oregon, the high Q antennas. And the high Q antennas now are all motorized, so you won't find any more of these with the manual adjustment. But if you do, again, let me know, and I'll snap it right up before you get your hands on your wallet. This is the smaller coil. This one goes down to 40 meters and is a good performer. And, of course, on top goes the whip, and we'll be talking more about that shortly. And next week, we'll be talking about capacity hats. As you can see, resonance is where the inductive reactance of this coil matches the capacitive reactance on the top. and a little beryllium matching there that goes up and down, and one turn, and it makes all the difference. But being able to see what's going on, you can play around with the capacity hats on the top, and the more capacity hats you add, the less turns of coil you need. That cuts down on resistance, and that will up radiation resistance and give you a better signal on the air. And now let's talk about mounting any of these bigger antennas with a big coil. Well, on the communications van, you'll see us. We've got it mounted off the left side. Well, what's it mounted on? There you go, the door hinge. I know. You say, wow, it might not be a great connection. No problem. With the flexible stainless steel strap, which you can get through DX Engineering, you ground one side of the door to the other side of the chassis, and you've now got a low reactance ground, and the door hinge that's substantial. I mean, that's going to hold it. So there you see, and that's the manual one, the Outbacker, and we've got the smaller coil on in that we weren't going DX that day. And a close-up Outbacker, let me get this straight. That was the high Q antenna. The high Q comes with a neat twist-off base, and you'll see the very heavy mount that is on there. Now, if you look below that mount, you see a bunch of goo, and it looks terrible. That's because that's high-voltage anti-arc over stuff that we used to use in the television industry. George will tell you all about it. You put that stuff on there, and any amount of moisture at the base, you're not going to have a flashover when you're running 500 watts on that solid-state amp. So that's what all that ugly glue is at the bottom. Or make that goo, not glue. And the neat thing about the high Q antenna, twist and turn, and you can take it off for keeping it safe at night. Here's on the wagon, another high Q antenna, manually operated. This does not work worth a darn when the tailgate is up because, look, the tailgate is causing a mistune of the antenna capacity hat. But, boy, once that tailgate is closed, it does a nice job. I'd like it a little bit higher, but on this particular vehicle, there's nothing higher up there. Well, what about a big old whip like the SGC 230 whip, SGC 303 lazy tuned whip? This one is driven by probably an automatic antenna tuner, but anytime you run an antenna tuner, an automatic antenna tuner inside a vehicle, you're base loading. And look at the size of the coils. Those are not very large. Those coils are going to get warm, and you're going to lose probably half of your power right there by base loading and trying to tune up an HF whip on 40 meters or 75 meters. Oh, it'll tune, but do you get a signal out? Finally, we had a good question come from Ed, Delta 5 Lima Papa. Ed says he drives 125 miles in his Opel Zafira, whatever that Opel is, on his particular highway and byway. And he says, will 3 or more mag mounts hold? Well, it all depends on the antenna. But what we found was quite amazing. These 3 and 4 magnetic mounts not only support the antenna, but seem to work fairly well without any additional grounding. You don't have to run them back and forth on the roof and dig into the material. They just seem to have a good capacitive ground. But you got to try it because on some vehicles, not all antennas will work. In fact, Diamond says that their antennas are not recommended for mag mounts. They have to have a direct grounding for them to play. So that's something to remember when you're thinking of putting these antennas on a mag mount. Finally, before we next week talk about automatic antennas, finally, we saw some of the worst coax cable assemblies going to some of the best antennas out there. So if you're going to be running your mobile setup, be sure and never leave your coax cable like this because moisture will run down the braid and kill your signal. Get a lot of this glue that comes from Universal Radio. It's called coax seal. Looks like glue. We'll call it goo. And you put it all over the place and you'll be ready to roll. So that was your quick tour of manually going to multi-bands. Next week, we're going to look at some of the base loading devices from MFJ, as well as DX Engineering actually does their own. We're going to see how these devices are able to take 12 ohms of resistance speed point and bring it up to 50 ohms. And these are terrific. But as Bob and I will tell you, you want to try and do as much tuning up at the antenna above the coil and with the coil, and then the base is going to be a little closer to 50 ohms. But the bigger the coil, the lower the impedance. So you've really got to take 10 to 12 ohms and get it up to 50 ohms. You can do it with these, or wind a little bit of wire around pencil, and you'll be able to do it yourself for about $50. So neat things. I'll see you on HF. And Don, I think you've got some good news. So back to you, Don, and thanks. And say hi to Don Arnold. And here's Don.
I will. And, Gordon, if you're missing the Outbacker antenna, DX Engineering has a tapped mobile whip antenna from Bushcom. It's called the Highlander 8. It will do 80 through 6. You want to check that out, the Bushcom at DX Engineering. So Mel, KSU, wanted me to mention that, and we just did. Great antennas. Let's talk about hiring people, because if you have a company or you're in charge of hiring for your company, you know that it's really one of the things that technology has really helped us. In most things, it seems like when computers got involved, it was extra steps, and it just seemed like it was more tedious. But hiring people is the one thing that technology has really seemed to help. And that's because of ZipRecruiter. If you're hiring, do you know where to post your job to find the best candidates? Posting your job in one place is not enough to find quality candidates. If you want to find the perfect hire, you need to post your job on all of the top job sites. And that can be a full-time job. Or, well, it used to be, but now with ZipRecruiter, you can do that. With ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to 200-plus job sites, including social media networks like Facebook and Twitter, all with a single click. This is why we have computers right here. For no other reason. This is it. Find candidates in any city or industry nationwide. Post it once. Watch the candidates roll into ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use interface. No more juggling emails. No more fielding calls to the office or avoiding calls to the office. You can quickly screen your candidates, rate them, and hire the right person fast. I want you to find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by Fortune 100 companies and thousands of small and medium-sized companies all over the place. Right now, you can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free by going to ZipRecruiter.com/twit. ZipRecruiter.com/twit. One more time. Try it for free. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/twit. And we thank them so much for their support of Ham Nation. And now let's go check Dr. Bob and see what he's doing with a pine board. Last time I got involved with a pine board, it was the coach in gym class, and I didn't like the way that turned out. I just want to tell you. So, I may be having a flashback here, Bob. You talk about the pine board. I don't know about this.
It might have had a couple of holes drilled in it too, right? Oh, boy.
Yeah, 10 or 12. Yeah.
Well, I've been working on this for some time. We did a little preface last week, and we're going to get into it tonight, and I hope we can do this in our allotted time. The reason that I'm doing this is one, and well, maybe it's two. We're going to try to help people build things. And I hear a lot of guys say, oh, we can't find parts. So yes, you can. And we're going to show you within the next 10, 12 minutes exactly where to get them, what they are, and we're going to build it and make it happen. And the reason I'm doing it on pine board is so you can see the circuitry. It draws it out just like the schematic. And what we're going to start with is going to be a single tube transmitter. Yeah, it's QRP, but it's going to be tube on 75 meters, could be on 40. We'll show you how that happens many shows down the line. But you can make this thing work. You can do this. And here's the schematic of first of all, the power supply. You have to understand that we're making these in like modules. And the modules, let me get this up here. The modules, instead of being built on metal, we're going to do it on pine board. It's a lot easier. It's the way we did it years ago. And there you are as to what's going to happen. We've got the transformer, the tube 6X5, and of course you have to have filter caps, and then the filament transformer, the windings are on the transformer. There's the listing. I would advise everybody to take some screenshots of this or get out your cell phone. I'll bring this back after a little bit so you can get these addresses, because there's all the parts right there. If Antique Electronics, they're amazing. Tubesandmore.com. They have everything. It really solves this problem. Everybody's, oh, we can't find parts. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up so all of the pieces and parts are made progressively easy to mount. I do it with wood screw. See, that's the situation. And here it is, finished. And only two things missing. The transformer's not there, and the octal base. And I did that because you can see it easier. And we're going to come in here with 110 volts from the line. And then this is the switch that turns that on and off. The transformer connects here. The secondary that's feeding a lot of power. The primary that's 110 volts go here. I'll get that right. After you have 110 volts into the primary of that transformer, now we come out of here and we've got about 300 volts. So you have to be very careful. These red lines are red for a reason. On that same transformer winding, they have 6.3 volts, which is the filament. That goes over here to the octal socket, and pins 2 and 7 are the filaments of that tube. We also bring it out here because this is the terminal strip that we will connect to the next procedure, which will be the mic preamp. Then we're going to build another module that will be the transmitter. And all of the power is taken from that strip. There'll be 150 volts after we get through the filtering. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. And that's all there is to it. It is very simple. Very simple. Now, one of the things that we have to pay attention to is when we come out of the rectifier, things get a little crazy. They're not real clean and clear as far as the DC as it comes out of the 6X5. That comes off of pin 8. And what you want to do here is filter it. So we come here, we put a capacitor, and bingo, you got it. You're ready to go. Then we take that. It's not filtered very well at that point, and we need to drop that voltage down a little bit, filter it again. And we're not quite sure how this will come up. We'll have to see once we get the transmitter and see how much current we draw. We might end up with a filter system that look like that. We have room on the board. I planned for it. But this is what happens when we leave the rectifier. And we'll end up then with a very clean, hopefully 100 and maybe 20, 30 volts for the 12AU7. And that's how that all goes together. Now, one thing I want to warn you about, and I mean, we're going to talk about this a lot. We are dealing with 300 volts coming out of that rectifier. And because of what we just saw there with all of the filtering and the resistor series, we'll get it down to hopefully around 120, 130 volts so we don't burn up and blow up the 12AU7. Danger. It's high voltage, everybody, and you have to pay attention. This is not 12 volts. We're going to point that out here in just a minute. But I think that the best thing that all of you can do is follow the procedures as we go through this each week. And what we're going to end up with are the pine boards. Let me show you what I did here. I started off with just a plain old piece of board. And then I took some, it's just a sealer type thing, and jazzed it up a little bit. That's not a big problem. You don't have to do that, but I did that with the walnut finish, and that was done with a paper towel. Dipped it in there, rubbed it onto there, let it dry. Bingo, we're there. Next, you have to punch all the holes, and that's done. You can take a copy of this if you want, but this is how it all stands out when we get that board finished. These are the holes for the transformer. Those are the mounting holes for the X6X5. These are the holes for the terminal strips, and there's then the other terminal strip on the output that we can take those 4 lines to the other pine board. They're there, and that works out well. You can kind of lay it out ahead of time. When you get all done with it, here's what we got. And I'm really happy with this. It turned out really good. Uses a 6X5. Why did I use a 6X5? Because other rectifiers use 5 volts of filament. And this rectifier uses the same 6 volts that feeds the rest of the filament chain. It really works out great. 6X5s. Not good for a whole lot of current, but we're not going to be drawing a lot of current in this project. But there again, I showed you the pinouts. There's the transformer mountings. There's one screw strip. Here's the terminal strip on the ground side. The capacitors are grounded over there. And then this is one of the resistor functions. We got room to put others in here. This is the ground. All of this is ground. That comes out here and goes over here and feeds the terminal strip. That's ground there. That is the B+. And the other thing I did, and you can do this, you don't have to, but I did, I put a pilot light on it. Okay, so we got it. Big deal, Heil. So what? Well, let me go down here. And let's get the camera on this little puppy. And I go over here and push the button. Aha! We got something happening. Look at the tube. You see, there's something about, maybe there's something wrong with me, but the magic of watching these tubes light up and emit electrons, we need to, maybe George and I should put a show together. Or George, you can do that for sure. Let everybody knows how that tube works. What's the big deal? Well, here's the deal. Now, be careful. I told you about this. In fact, I want to put this up here, and we're going to definitely talk about this, the old high voltage. I'm telling you, right now, we're dealing with 300 volts because I don't have all of the filtering. We won't have that till I know what the exact, there we go, what the exact current draw is going to be. Okay, now, let me show you what's happening over here. Let's put this guy over here. See if we can zero in on all of it for you. There's my Simpson 260. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the minus. It's on the 250 volt DC. We're going to put that on ground. And we're going to put that. Look at that. We got, how about that? Perfect. 200 volts. Cool. And we're ready to go. I'm going to turn it off. Uh-oh, I turned it off. Look at that meter. Look at that. What's happening to that meter? I turned it off. Where's that voltage coming from? I told you, this is a dangerous situation. And what you have to do is pay attention. That can even be unplugged, and it's still going to have voltage, and it's going to happen with these capacitors. That's what they do. Capacitors filter the line. Well, I got the greatest idea. I mean, the greatest idea from one of our great chat room guys, Chip, K9MIT. And what he did this in his work, I understand, some years ago. And he built, and I call it the chip stick. I did this from a paint stick that I got at Lowe's. And you go here. See, this is what's wonderful about home brewing. You can do it your own way, but I got a piece of copper wire, and it's not going anywhere, but it's just shorting. Stick it. We got to use caution on this thing. And if I take that and short the ground, did you hear that? If you didn't, we're going to do it again. I mean, these are serious things, everybody. Serious things. Because when I turn this power supply off, I'll show you what we're talking about, what's going to happen. This is the ground right here, that ground wire. That has the voltage to it. That's what do we figure, 200 and some volts? So between these two, we have it. Well, let's turn this up. Not only that, to prove to you, there's the plug. It's not even plugged in, but we still got voltage. So what do? You take the old chipstick. I mean, this is going to be one of the most handy tools you have because it will save your life. And I take it from ground. Now listen, listen. This is going to spark and arc and do everything else. Turn it over here so you might be able to see it. Do it here. Okay, here we go. Did you hear that? You see that? Now, did it again. You got to do it a couple of times. Now let's go back and let's hook up our meter just to prove to you that we don't have any more voltage. Maybe we will. Let's see. Because I'm telling you, you can have, we got about a half a volt. But do not let this deter you. I don't want to have the flames from all you guys. This is dangerous. Come on, I've been doing this for 60 years. You just have to be aware. I mean, I would deal with power supplies that are 3,000 volts. And so you just have to be careful. And what you want to do, man, is you want to build you a chipstick. Yes, you do. And Chip, man, I thank you. He sends a lot of cool ideas my way. But I want to put this back up one more time about where you should be spending a little bit of time. Send in, get these guys' catalog, order the parts. There you are. That's the whole parts list of everything that you're going to need to make all of these things happen. This power supply will drive a lot of different things. We're going to do other things too. Now we have the power supply. We can build all kinds of stuff. But this is most important, the power transformer. And then it's a PT 261G6. It's very important. It's a center tapped transformer. We'll get into that later too as we get through it. A couple of filter caps, 20 mics at 450, and a couple of resistors. These might change a little bit. It'll get you going. And then you're going to need the other filter caps. I have a 47 mic at 500 volts. That way I've got 4 of them we can play around as once we get going. You might want a fuse holder, a power switch. You definitely want to do that. Now, vacuum tubes I get from Mike. He's really good. WB0SND, a good old AM buddy. He's got a great company. It's called vacuumtubes.com. That's what you want to do is get the rectifier, 6X5, 12AU7, and a pair of 12AX7s. One of the neatest things that we have, and I dropped it on the floor a while ago, that we found, and I found this in Orlando, is the octal socket for the rectifier. You can buy all kinds of sockets, but man, this baby is ceramic. I really love it. And is it going to be any better or something? No, but it's really a great socket, and it mounts good. You'll notice how it isn't made to mount on a regular chassis in a hole. It's made to mount on pine board. And that came from ASRCvacuumtubes.com. So there you go. I just have to tell you how much fun this has been putting this together the last couple of nights. I've been working on the project, as you well know, for some time. I've been talking about it. But I wanted to put it together, make it work, show you why some things work, why they don't, what we got to do. And basically, don't forget the chipstick, because you're playing with high voltage, okay? Don't let this run you away. You just have to be careful, that's all. And we're going to have fun. And this is going to end up being a QRP 75-meter AM transmitter, complete with a modulator, whole bit. It's going to be really fun. Then I think we might build a receiver. I don't know where. We got the power supply now. We can do all kinds of stuff. So there you are. I hope you enjoy this. I know I go overboard because I love this hobby, and this is how I learned it. Building those kind of things 60 years ago in my Elmer, they were just great. I have great respect for them. I wish they were still here to see what happened to my career because of them teaching me this kind of stuff all those many years ago, 1956. So there you go. And I'll bet you George has done a few things like that. What do you think, George? You've built a lot of stuff like that, haven't you? And, oh, hey, how big is your chipstick? It's probably about this big around, right? Playing with those 3,000 volts.
Yeah, it's a little bigger around, Bob. And let's see, most of my big tube-type transmitters have around 10 kilovolts at about 3 or 4 amps, so that is a lot of power. But they come with the stick built in. They call it a Jesus stick, is what a lot of people call it. But it's basically a stick about yay long, about a 1/4-inch rod, diameter on these, and it's got a fiberglass handle on it about that long. And they have a ground wire that's connected to it, so it's hooked onto the frame of the transmitter. And you're supposed to take that stick and touch around all the high voltage capacitors and things after you've turned the power off, before you get in it, to make sure exactly what you showed there, that it doesn't discharge across you. It's better to let that stick take the arc there. One very important thing, though, is make sure you turn the power off before you go probing around an area with that shorting rod, because I've seen some before that had the end blown off of them where, somebody didn't turn off the transmitter before they went to poking around in there. And I'll say a great project. The thing that caught my eye, and I'm glad you brought it up, is that ceramic tube socket. Those are really nice. We don't need them for smaller tubes like this, but you get some, some big tubes and, a lot of heat going in there. That ceramic's going to last forever, where, some of your little plastic ones just aren't going to make it long term. So thanks for that. We're looking forward to more in the future. And we'll be back in just a moment, but first, a message from Icom. It's time to put away those winter boots and spring forward with Icom. Base stations, mobile transceivers, handhelds, and more, Icom has all the equipment to help make your spring full of adventure. Get out and get mobile with Icom. Communicate with the touch of your fingertips. Perfect for small spaces, the IC7100 is the ideal D-Star option to help communicate anywhere. Angled control head and touchscreen for quick, intuitive operation, large internal speaker for clear digital audio, and it's perfect for multi-band and all-mode communications. Do you have spring travel plans this year? Back for a limited time, the IC7200 is a great option for hams wanting a device to carry out into the field. Simple and tough with IFDSP, digital noise reduction, and USB port for PC control. Ideal for the ham on the go. Try the IC7300. It's a high-performance, innovative HF transceiver with a compact design, RF direct sampling, 15 discrete bandpass filters, large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, real-time spectrum scope, SD memory card slot, and more. Visit ICOMAmerica.com/amateur for more information on all Icom radios. And you can tune in and enter to win after each episode of Ham Nation. Go to icomamerica.com/hamnation. Register to win great swag prizes like T-shirts and hats. While you're there, learn how you could be entered into the monthly grand prize drawing for a new radio. And for March, that's going to be the Icom ID 51A Plus 2 dual band, dual watch, VHF, UHF handheld transceiver. Does both analog and D-Star, has a built-in GPS receiver, DV and FM repeater list functions, independent AM/FM receiver. You can download a free Android app for it, and there's a lot more. So go to icomamerica.com/hamnation. After this and each episode of Ham Nation, register to win, sign up, good luck, and don't forget to follow Icom America Inc. on Facebook and Twitter. And I'll be back in just a few moments with some smoke and solder. But first, here's Don Wilbanks, the star of the show.
From Amateur Radio Newsline Report, number 2053, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, March 8th, 2017. One police organization in India has been busy integrating amateur radio into its well-established strategy of radio response. That's going to mean more ham radios and more licensed hams.
The Assam Police Radio Organization, which issues wireless communication for law enforcement and crises, is working to integrate amateur radio use more deeply into its operations, particularly for disaster preparedness. According to a recent article in the Assam Tribune, the strategy gained traction during a February APRO seminar on disaster response, and planners said priority needed to be given to communication methods that did not rely on the existing communications grid. The Director General of Assam's Police, Mukesh Sahi, said during the seminar that the need for more trained and licensed amateur radio operators is paramount. Police in Assam have used various forms of wireless communications since 1946, and an independent communications network was expanded following India's independence the following year. Disaster response was taken to a new level in 2005 when the Amateur Radio Centre VU2-VKP was opened at the APRO Training School in 2005. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Jeremy Bucci for NJH.
Staging a world-class HF contest takes lots of planning and preparation, so organizers of next year's World Radio Sport Team Championship in Germany can't start too soon.
It's around 500 days to the 2018 World Radio Sport Team Championship, and preparations are well underway. A successful test was already performed on one of the planned sites in July of 2016, and now from June 23rd to the 25th, several stations will be set up and taken down in the Essen-Wittenberg area of northeast Germany, where the 2018 event will take place. From antenna and mast assembly through power supplies and tents, everything will be tested to find any possible problems. The processes for the volunteers supporting the event will be fine-tuned and documented so that when the pinnacle of HF contesting comes to Germany next year, all will be ready and everything will run smoothly. For anyone wishing to help with the financing of this major event, full details of how to sponsor the event, a team, or a tent can be found on the WRTC 2018 website at wrtc2018.de. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Karen Eve Murray, KD2 GUT.
Elmering has a long tradition in amateur radio, and one Texas club takes it so seriously they've invested some grant money in a special book to recruit and encourage new licensees.
Members of the Cedar Creek Amateur Radio Club, K5CCL, don't consider prospective hams to be dummies, and they're not calling them dummies. They'd actually like to call them fellow hams. That's why they're making free copies available of the ARRL book, Ham Radio for Dummies. The Athens, Texas Club believes that wide distribution of the book to libraries and schools will give people greater access to radio knowledge and perhaps cultivate some new licensees. The book, which is in its second edition, is by ARRL contributing editor Ward Silver, N0AX. A grant from LDG Electronics of St. Leonard, Maryland made it possible for the club to purchase copies, and nearly every school and public library in the Tri-County area around this Texas community received a copy from Glenn Hughes, KF5CTG, a former teacher who coordinated the project for the Cedar Creek Club. An estimated 30 copies were distributed and now await their new readership. The club hopes some VE sessions will eventually follow. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Skeeter Nash, N5ASH.
For the rest of this week's Amateur Radio News, please listen to the full Amateur Radio Newsline report online on a repeater near you or on shortwave radio station WTWW at 9930 and 5085 kilohertz. And a reminder that the nominating period for the 2017 Bill Pasternak WA6ITF Young Ham of the Year Award is now open and runs through May 31st. You can find the nominating form on our newly redesigned website, arnewsline.org, under the YHOTY tab. We'll present the award to a deserving young amateur at the Huntsville, Alabama Hamfest in August. And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at www.arnewsline.org. With Jeremy Boot, G4NJH, Skeeter Nash, N5ASH, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at both the microphone and the news desk in New York this week, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wellbanks, AE5DW, saying 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now, here's the solar update with Dr. Tamitha Scove.
We're finally going to get some peace and quiet after an extended storming period that's lasted more than a week, and it's given us gorgeous aurora views all over the world. Those stories and more in the news this week. We are finally calming down from some extended storming due to some fast wind that's been rattling the Earth's shield for over a week. That was due to a coronal hole that's now rotated to the sun's backside. And now what we're left with is this nebulous area here that kind of used to be a coronal hole, but it's been filling in quite rapidly. Now, maybe that's what's caused this extended storming period, because we're just not seeing the solar wind quiet down as fast as we're used to. But that's been wonderful for you amateur or your aurora photographers who have been taking pictures left and right all over the world with these beautiful aurora shows. Now, you amateur radio operators, on the other hand, have probably been very frustrated, but all of that is about to change. Switching to your M-flare threat meter, you can see the last time we even had C-class flares was back at the end of February. Since then, things have gotten quieter and quieter, and we're now hovering just above the B floor for X-rays. This means that we're barely having enough solar flux for amateur radio propagation, and this will continue as we get closer to solar minimum. Switching to our solar storm conditions, we actually have to go all the way back to March 1st to find some quiet times. That's when that big solar wind stream hit us and started rattling Earth's shield. The fast wind caused us to have storm conditions periodically over the last 8 days. That's over a week. But finally things are beginning to calm down, and we should start settling down over the next week or so. Switching to our solar storm and aurora possibilities over the coming week, as I've said, we're still coming down from this fast wind. We have not gotten back to slow solar wind yet, so NOAA is giving us a chance at high latitudes for active conditions and even a possibility for a minor storm. Probably not likely, but we are still kind of worried about that. Now, at mid-latitudes, we're only expecting unsettled conditions with about a 10 to 20% chance of active conditions over the next day or so, and then things will continue to calm down and continue to calm down. But the effects are lingering. It takes a long time for the Earth's shield to kind of stop rattling after it's been, stirred up a bit. So expect these conditions to get better over the next week and possibly over the next 2 weeks. Switching to your solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, we are very much in the green when it comes to solar flares. The Earth-facing disk is bare. All of the active regions have rotated to the backside of the sun, so we don't have to worry about flares at all. The only problem that brings us is that for you amateur radio operators, the solar flux is extremely low because we have no active regions to kind of keep the levels up. And this trend is going to continue probably for the next 5 days or so. So the space weather is finally calming down this week after an extended storm period. We had that fast solar wind that slammed Earth for over a week and gave us gorgeous aurora, but you aurora photographers can now finally go and put your cameras down and take a break, while you amateur radio operators and GPS operators can applaud the coming of the quiet. Now, of course, this does present its own problems because we have issues with solar flux staying at high enough levels for propagation, but at least things are going to be for the next week. I'm Tamitha Scove. Thank you for watching.
So nice to have Dr. T back with us, and she's going to be in Dayton. She's going to be at DX the Contest University. That Contest University that Tim Duffy presents. Of course, Tim Duffy from DX Engineering. And of course, springtime. So as we're watching lightning, we're also turning attention to our antennas. We're getting out of the winter thaw, and if you're a little bit short on space, but you still want an impressive HF presence, you have no problem with DX Engineering because they carry many vertical antenna options, like butternut verticals. Very easy to install and tune. They offer exceptional HF performance. The HF2V 2-band butternut vertical is an excellent 80-40 meter option. 32 feet in height, so it's relatively short. It has a narrow profile, which means it's very survivable and winds up to 60 miles per hour. And there's an optional 160 meter add-on kit that you can get separately. The HF6V is a 6-band vertical. That gets you 80 through 10. It's only 26 feet tall, the vertical radiator is. That means it'll handle winds up to about 80 miles an hour, and there are optional add-on kits for the work bands, plus 160 and 6 are available as well, so you can load that thing up. The 9-band HF9V butternut vertical could be the most versatile antenna in DX Engineering's catalog. 80 through 6, the radiator is only 26 feet high. An optional 160 add-on kit is available separately. Also, DX Engineering offers kits based around Hustler's multi-band verticals. They get you on HF without having to put up a tower base in your living room, which is nice. They have step-by-step solutions for amateur operators who want to get on the air easily. They're excellent for the newly licensed ham who wants to get started on HF but wants to skip the sometimes tricky component matching process. There are 3 of these kits available, and they're all based around Hustler's 4-band, 5-band, and 6-band verticals. That's up to 80 to 10 meter coverage through a single vertical antenna, and each one uses an efficient design using individually precision-tuned Q traps. The broadband performance permits phone, CW, and digital, and Hustler's multiband verticals handle the full legal limit and can withstand winds up to 55 miles an hour. There are optional upgrade and repair kits also available through DX Engineering. The kit includes the antenna, the high-quality DX Engineering patented radial plate with exclusive patented tilt base, set of radial staples, radial wire, several key brackets, connectors, and hardware to make installation very simple and straightforward. They even come with DX Engineering's advanced operating manuals to ensure you get the most performance from your vertical antenna. And, should you need it, all the repair and upgrade parts for these vertical antennas are at DX Engineering as well. DX Engineering ships faster than anybody else in the industry. If you get your order in by 10 p.m. Eastern and it fits in stock, it'll be on a truck headed your way tonight. Proven products expert advice, DX Engineering will literally help you shrink the globe. Request your catalog or shop online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at dxengineering.com/hamnation. dxengineering.com/hamnation. Thank you so much for your support of Ham Nation. You can get shirts and you can get the hat that's back there behind me, but they have other things too, like shack accessories, note cubes. I can't tell you how many times you want to reach for something just to jot a little something down, the DX Engineering note cube. And yeah, I've taken a few off there. Mouse pads, they got the mouse pads, and look at this, the 24-hour DX Engineering clock. This normally is in front of me. You don't normally see this because the camera's pointed at me and not to the back, but it's sitting on the wall right there in front of me, and so I can look up anytime and see what time it is in UTC. And it's a good-looking accessory for the shack. So go to dxengineering.com/hamnation and check out everything they have. George, you've been to dxengineering.com/hamnation. I know you have.
I sure have, Don, and I'm going to tell you how you can win one of these T-shirts when we come back in just a moment. But first, I've been working on these speakers for a while here. We're going to finish them up tonight. The glue I'm going to use is some of this CRC adhesive that came with the surrounds. There were also instructions with the surrounds, and I encourage you to read those before you ever start so that you've got a good idea of what you're going to do. Now, they say that you can take this adhesive, you can use the nozzle here to kind of spread it around on the surrounds, or they also include an acid brush here that you could scrape it around with. I'm just going to use the applicator. You should put the adhesive on, give it a minute to cure, and then proceed to tack it down. Well, I'm not really going to pay a lot of attention to that step because it's going to be at least a minute before I can get these surrounds where I want them. I'm doing it to the back here, so I've got to move pretty quick and be careful because once this stuff begins drying, it's going to instantly stick to the cone on first contact. So we've got to move pretty fast. And I've got to do it in a way that it's not actually going to contact the cone until it's in the right position. So the first step is to do the inside of the surround. And since I'm going to the back of the cone here, I do the top of the surround. And here is the really tricky part, getting this behind the surrounds without it touching. And that's virtually impossible to do, so we'll just have to do the best we can. Now, once you've got it setting about where you think it should be, then for the next 10 minutes, you need to go all the way around the speaker several times and push down to make sure that the surround and the cone are fusing to each other. That really didn't work out so well. When you're dealing with a polycone, a rubber surround, and something like contact cement as the glue, you've got a little issue that it's going to dry and get tacky really quick. What happened was it did, and before I could get the surrounds positioned correctly under the cone and in place, it dried and stuck out of round. So when I got finished, I could push down on the speaker. You could hear it scraping the sides. You could hook it up, play some sound through it, and you could hear it. The voice caller was scraping on the sides. So I regrouped and came up with another method that seems to work a lot better. I put the glue in a syringe. I take that syringe, put it under the edge right between the cone and the surround, inject a little glue in there, let that stick, dry good, then come back and continue on around. I've given it about 45 minutes for that glue to set up and get hard. Now, you know, it's going to take 24 hours or so before it's completely dry, but this is enough that we can continue. If you want, you can clean any glue where you spilled over a little bit onto the cone there. I'm not real concerned about that. I think this will be fine for my purposes. So the next step here is we've got to put the glue under the outer edge of the surround. This can be a little tricky too. Probably not as bad as it was, though, doing the center here. So to do that, I'm going to take some pencils and pens and kind of prop up around the outer edge. The reason I'm doing this is this glue becomes tacky immediately and it'll stick. We don't really want this sticking until we've got most of the glue in place. The different surround kits are going to come with different types of glue. This one came with the CRC adhesive here that is pretty much contact cement. At least that's what it appears to be. Some I've done in the past had a glue that was very similar to just plain old Elmer's white glue, but that's not what they're using with these. To help get the speaker directly lined up again where the voice coil is not going to scrape on the magnet, press down in the center of the speaker, and that kind of helps center it. Then we'll need to go around and press down. I think we're going to be okay because I hear absolutely no scraping when I press down, and it feels good and smooth too. Our next step is going to be to glue the gasket on. That'll just go right around the outer edge there. I got a little more on the outside of the gasket than I had hoped there. And we kind of want to get that centered up to where it's not rubbing on the edge. And the next step, and this is to help ensure that this sits up firmly, is we're going to take, and this is not in the instructions, I'm just doing it. I want to take the front of the speaker here, lay it down flat, and I'm going to position the speaker perfectly where it would normally fit there. And so the weight of the speaker now will kind of hold down so that the glue should sit up firmly, exactly like it should. So we'll let this sit. Here's the inside of the speaker. And you can see, as typical with most speaker cabinets, there is some insulation in there, and they don't put it on all the walls here. You can see here, it's only on one wall, and there's a little foam in the back there. Really, I mean, I've seen some speakers before that were completely stuffed with the insulation there, but this is what you typically see. Now, here's a crossover sitting down in the bottom here. These are the two wires that go to the woofer. You can see there's a coil here, there's a capacitor, and there's one other item right here. That looks like a light bulb. Why do you think that would be there? Well, let's examine the crossover. Here's just a little schematic I drew up of it. Here's where the speaker terminals are located on the back. The negative comes in and goes to the negative terminals on both the woofer and the tweeter. The positive comes in, goes through one side of the coil, and then goes to the positive terminal of the woofer. And it also goes through a 6.2 microfarad at 250 volt non-polarized capacitor. Remember, we talked about those recently. Here's the light bulb, and then it goes on to the positive terminal of the speaker. Now, no, that's not in there for a light show, but that's basically it. Here's your crossover. Of course, we know that the coil here is going to block the high frequencies from getting to the woofer because we don't want it trying to reproduce treble. And conversely, the capacitor here is going to block the low frequencies out of the tweeter. And I noticed several people in the chat room there were saying, was it really worth the effort? It was to me. I bought these speakers on sale. I've got 4 of them. I got a really good deal on them at $100 a piece. So, yeah, it was worth it to me to repair the woofers that were in them. You can't just buy another woofer the same size and put it in the cabinet. It's not going to sound the same at all. I've reconed speakers before. The larger ones are really easy to do. A 12-inch woofer, pretty doggone simple. When you get to these little bitty ones like this, that's the first time I've done any that small. It was kind of tough. But if you can't get the exact replacement that was meant for that cabinet, not just a speaker the same size, the exact replacement, one with the same free air resonance, it's not going to sound the same. So, to me, it's worth it to preserve the quality of the speakers. You could just buy more speakers, but, I had a couple of $100 in these already, so I figure I'd salvage them. Bob, you know a little bit about repairing speakers, don't you?
Yeah, just a little. I was a recon specialist for JBL for years back in the 70s. And we did thousands of them like that because people would send them in from all over the world. And it was quite something. And you're right. The biggest deal is the free air cone resonance. A lot of people do not understand that. Speaker cabinets are designed to meet the free air cone resonance. You do that by taking the speaker outside, just the speaker, and running a tone across all the frequencies, find out where it resonates. Then you design the box to that frequency, and it's very efficient then. If you don't do that, it's just another speaker. So that's a great project. I'm glad you did it. It brings a lot of things to light for people that didn't probably know. So good deal, George.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. And yeah, it's it's a worthwhile project to me. It was well worth the time that I spent on there and the little money I spent buying the surrounds. Well, last week I asked a question from Gordo's Extra Class Amateur Radio Manual, and that was, what is the maximum power output permitted on the 60-meter amateur band? Your choices were 500 watts PEP effective radiated, 50 watts PEP reflected radiated to an isotropic radiator, 50 watts PEP effective radiated power to a dipole, C, 100 watts PEP effective relative to the gain of a half-wave dipole. And we had a winner. It was Bill Hawkins, WR1TR, and he said that it is 100 watts PEP effective radiated power relative to the gain of a half-wave dipole. So you don't just turn your radio to 100 watts when you're operating on 60 meters. You've got to calculate in, to do it right, your feed line loss and the gain of your antenna, because you're dealing with effective radiated power, not PEP power of the transmitter itself. Well, congratulations, Bill. We're going to send you one of these MFJ 148 RC radio control clocks. 2 clocks there. You can set them for 12 or 24-hour time, one to your local time zone, one to UTC, and you're set to go. And there's an ID timer button on the top, too, so it can remind you every 10 minutes that you need to ID. Congratulations, Bill. They'll be getting that right out to you. Next week, I'm going to give away one of these DX Engineering silk screen T-shirts, the logo right here on the front and the big logo on the back. Very comfortable T-shirt. If you'd like to win that, well, you noticed I showed a little light bulb in that speaker there. Tell me what that light bulb was used for. Send your answer to me, hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and you could win. And now it's time to bring in Valerie and see what's going on in the wide, wide world of DX.
Hi. I almost wasn't able to be on tonight because our club is having their local storm severe weather spotting course tonight. But I went on to the website, November Oscar Alpha Alpha.org/Skywarn, and I found another class that's Tuesday. So, and everybody's ramping up and doing those classes, so it's important you get out there and become a trained spotter. You don't need to have your ham radio license to do it, and it's probably a good idea to at least do it every other year. So make sure you get out there and sign up and become a trained spotter. Well, ask and ye shall receive. A couple people sent out emails that they wanted to learn more about islands on the air. So I went to the biggest expert I could find in my area, Mike, and here's our interview. Hello, everybody. I am joined here with Mike McGurr, K9AJ. Now, Mike, a lot of people, you may know him. He's a retired emergency room doctor, but he originally got into HF big time. He is on the honor roll, only needing CW from North Korea. And he's operated from 30 DXCC entities, including his most recent one, that big DXpedition that they had to South Sandwich and South Georgia. Welcome aboard, Mike.
Thank you.
What most people don't know about Mike is he's got a little hidden secret. He's a big IOTA guy, right?
I didn't think it was a big secret.
Well, he's very into IOTA. And why don't you explain to people what IOTA is all about?
IOTA is a program that I got interested in because I had all the DXCC countries work that were workable, and they needed something to keep me busy and be a challenge. And I went to the 5-band WAZ, and then I still needed a challenge, so I started to count islands. And I actually went through all my cards, and I had a couple of shoe boxes of cards, and I wound up with 750 or so many IOTA counters. I said, wow, that's really neat. So I started chasing islands.
So what is an IOTA for those that don't know?
An IOTA is an island or a group of islands that's designated by the RSGB IOTA program as being a counter, and they assign a continent dash a number for each island or island group, and you collect them. as you would DXCC countries.
Now, I used to live on a lake, and there was a little island in the middle of our lake. Would that count as an island on the air?
If it's a freshwater lake, something like the Great Lakes or something like that, or even smaller, probably no. Generally, the islands we're talking about have salt water around them,
So
or
it has to have
at least brackish sort of salt water.
Brackish means the fresh water is mixing with the salt water.
Yeah.
So, but when in doubt, where can they go to figure out if it's an IOTA?
We have
the Bible.
The Bible. This is the Bible. It's the IOTA directory. It has everything you ever want to know about working islands, activating islands, and getting credit for islands, where they are. That has latitude and longitude for virtually every IOTA island that's been established. And you can get this. I got this at the RSGB booth at Dayton last year, but it's on the ARRL bookstore. You can go there and you can find it. If you chase IOTA, this is absolutely necessary.
Now, how many islands on the air are there?
There are somewhat under 1,200. Not all those have been activated yet. I think the highest scores that I've seen is like 1120 or 1130 or something in that neighborhood. That's the people who have worked the most that have been worked.
Now, I know there was a lot of people that really got into the national parks on the air and activating these national parks. So if they're looking for something to do, how hard would it be for them to go and activate an island?
A lot of the islands are very easy to activate. A lot of the islands you can drive over bridges to along the East Coast and Florida. You don't even have to get your feet wet.
And you just use your regular call?
You just use your call, and if you think about you want to generate some activity, you can put something out on one of the IOTA reflectors. There's a Yahoo reflector for IOTA, and you can put out there, hey, I'm going to go activate this IOTA, and you'll find out people may want to work you.
And you just need special QSL cards then with your IOTA number on it. They're going to want cards?
The card does not necessarily need to have the IOTA number on it. It needs the island name.
Okay.
The island name, and it can't be handwritten. So if you have your own card from home, you can't write the island name. It has to be printed on the card, but you can do that with a mailing label, with a label. The QSO label you print from your computer, is it has the IOTA island name on it, then you're good to go.
Because I went to Saba, so that was probably in an IOTA, PJ6, and I just had the name of the island. Let me grab my card here.
As long as the island name is on it, you don't have to have the number.
Oh, I did put the IOTA number on here. I operated from NA 145. So
there you go.
Very good. Now, how many have you operated from?
40 or
50?
So 50, something like that. Something about IOTA. If you activate an island, you get credit for it. Unlike DXCC, where if you go to activate a DXCC counter, you don't necessarily get automatic credit.
Because you can't work yourself from the island.
IOTA program gives you credit for being on the island.
Just as if you work the island.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
That's really nice. That's really nice. Because I know a lot of countries Jerry needs, he goes to, so it's hard for him to work that country because he's on that island.
Right.
So, yeah, that's kind of nice. Now, if anybody was interested in learning about IOTA, I know we have the IOTA Bible. Is there websites or places you can go to get more information on working islands on the air?
www.rsgbiota, all one word, no spaces, .org is a good reference source. You can go there, and that's where you go to enter your credits when you get your card, so you can get a score once a year. That's where you go to see what's on the air, what's coming up, what's active right now. It tells you if that island's ever been on the air before. It tells you how many people, what percentage of people who have claimed credits have that one confirmed. And it tells you the call signs of previous operations.
And I noticed, speaking of getting credit for it, I noticed this beautiful plaque here. And that is for what? What is that for?
Well, the plaque itself was for working 1,000 IOTA count, or having 1,000 IOTA counters confirmed. But then I have some endorsement plaques on it, so this is actually my 1,100 trophy.
Out of almost 1,200, so that's pretty good.
Yes,
You're almost done.
So I have the endorsements for 1025, 1050, 1075, and then most recently 1,100. Yeah.
And do you guys have any kind of IOTA contests or anything like that?
There is a contest. I believe it's the third. I could be wrong. I think it's the third weekend in July. And the nice thing about that is, assuming the station that you worked, the IOTA that you worked, sends his login to the RSGB, you can get automatic credit for that without having to get a card for your honor roll and your listing.
And I notice I use DX World a lot, and I notice he posts a lot about IOTA on there as well. Is that a good place to look to?
It's a good place. If it's a really breaking news, Carl usually has it on the front page. If you want to know what's going on in IOTA, click the IOTA key on the website, and you'll go there and it'll tell you the news of all the IOTA stuff that's on.
And I see there's even an interactive map you can get on qrzcq.com/page/IOTA map. And now for tracking IOTA, I mean, it's a lot more than DXCC. I mean, almost 1,200 of them. Does typical logging software allow for tracking of IOTA, what you need and what you have?
Most all commonly used ham software, logging software has it. Now the contest one like N1MM, that's strictly a logging program. But all the other management programs,
like DX Labs Suite, maybe Ham Radio Deluxe,
that all have IOTA.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect. Anything else? Any final words? Anything I'm missing here?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. When I was a young ham, a young DXer, we used to get one ringers. One ringer is when
I know, I heard about these.
You hear a one ringer and the phone rings once and they hang up and you run down and you get on a 2-meter repeater and they tell you, hey Mike, go so and so and so and so and so and so. Well, I missed that
because there was no cluster. That was your cluster.
It was our cluster, and I missed that. And now what happens? I get phone calls again from my IOTA buddies and say, hey, he's on so and so, and it's like the old times. It's like the old days. And in fact, they don't give a ring. They just call you up and say, hey Mike, get on the air.
Do they spot him on the cluster? They may spot him on the cluster and give the IOTA number.
Oh yeah, they're spotted. So if you have that, then if you scroll down the comment section, you'll pick it up.
You'll find them.
Especially if you're looking for it.
It'd be nice if they just had a cluster for IOTA. So well, one day.
Won't work.
Well, thanks so much for joining us and kind of clearing things up on IOTA, and hopefully for all of you that have the hole in your heart now that NAPOTA's over, you can go activate some islands on the air.
My pleasure.
Thanks. And I'll get right to it. Here's this week's DX report. Okay, it's time for this week's edition of the DX Files. Bangladesh, big one coming up, March 15th through the 27th. There are going to be 11 ops. They do have 2 call signs, and that's for licensing reasons. The Sierra 21 Golf Mike is going to be week 1, Sierra 21 Kilo Whiskey week 2. Also, Ivory Coast, big DXpedition, 14 operators, March 9th through the 19th, and that's Tango Uniform 7 Charlie. 5 Uniform, 5 Radio, Niger, another big DXpedition, March 9th through the 21st. And Nepal, another big DXpedition, 9 November, 7 Echo India, and that's March 8th through the 20th. Now this weekend, we've got the Idaho, the Oklahoma, and the Wisconsin State QSO Party. So get out there and help those guys out. Next weekend, Louisiana and Virginia State QSO Party. And that's it for this week's edition of the DX Files. And that's all I've got for this week, so I'm going to head it over to Amanda in the chat room. How you doing, Amanda?
Very good, and I hope you had a fun time this weekend. It wasn't as great as it could have been, but hey, it is what it is. And Val, don't go away, because I need you to help me pronounce this town in Wisconsin, and I think you can help me. Is it Eau Claire?
Yeah, Eau Claire, E-A-U-C-L-A-R. Yeah, Eau Claire.
Okay. HamFest in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, this Saturday, the 11th, from 8 a.m. till 2 p.m. All right, let's move on. Bob, the biggest question of the night was, and a lot of people talked about this in the chat room, why didn't you put on a bleeder resistor instead of manually discharging the capacitors on the pine board?
Like Sarah says, a lot of people don't listen. I told you that. This is just to get the voltage. We can't figure that out till we know what the current's going to be from the transmitter and the preamp and all that good stuff. Well, as I said, this is just the prelim to get the power supply to put out the voltage. From there, after we get the rest of the circuits all hooked up, then we can figure our current draw. And then you're going to find these geniuses that say, well, you can X square over. No. The only way you're going to know is with the circuitry that's coming after the power supply. And I might change my mind as I get it going and add some other things. So that'll all come later. The resistors will change. Caps will be pretty much the same. That's why I put in there's 2 different kinds of caps. There'll be 4 of them. So you have those, and then we'll pick out what the resistors are and all kinds of good stuff like that. So I mentioned it, but slipped some minds, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, Gordo, this next question is for you. We had Lee, KA9USG. He lost his dipole in the wind Monday night, and he was using a counterweight system that had pulleys, and he now wants to stay away from pulleys but keep the counterweight system. Any suggestions or an alternative to a pulley?
What a lot of folks do to counterweight a dipole is they'll hang a beverage container, plastic bottle, and that'll keep tension on it. And he lost his pulley. Gosh, many of the marine hardware stores here have some great stainless steel pulleys. But pulleys should survive, I would think, all sorts of windstorm, because you got to get, for that dipole, the feed point well higher than the tip ends. And when you droop the dipole down like this, it's going to give you some additional radiation off the ends of the dipole that you wouldn't get if it's just flat out. So raise the feed point up, put a couple water bottles on each end for a little tension, and have fun. Work DX, and I hope you find your dipole that went away.
If the winds have been anything like they've been here in Colorado, he ain't ever finding it. We've had some horrendous winds here lately. So other than that, you guys, I don't have any other questions. Let's see. Let's go over the nets we're going to have tonight. We have the D-Star net currently going on 14 Charlie. And we also have the DMR net going on TAC 311 HF, 40 meters, 7192. 20 meters, you guys, hopefully that will be starting up soon. Let's hope for April, and we'll have the 2 HF nets to join in on. And don't forget the Echolink Dewdrop in net as well. So join in if you can. Over to you, Bob.
Okay, very, very good. By the way, I never use pulleys. I don't believe in them, no matter if they're marine or aircraft or what. I use carabiners. You know what a carabiner is? A lot of guys have them on their belt to hold a bunch of keys. Go down to Lowe's or Home Depot and buy a 6 or 8 inch stainless steel carabiner. And I take that, tie it to the tree or whatever you want to do up there. But then there's no way that the rope is going to hang up with anything. It works great. I've got 7 dipoles out here. They've been up for almost 5 years now, and never had a problem. And I've never used. I did in my beginning, but I learned this from one of my great Elmers. Carabiners, no pulleys. It works great. So there you go. Another little tip from the Ozarks. Well, it's been great tonight. Everything's been so entertaining and educational. I really enjoyed seeing you, Val, and George's project there. Always good to see Tamitha, Don, so keep her coming, and we'll go from there. So see you back here next week, right here on the same place. So tell all your friends, and in the meantime, get on the air. Don't let people tell you, oh, the conditions are bad. Nah, they might be good one day, bad the other, but there's always somebody to talk to somewhere. I never have that problem, so you do too. Just get on there and talk. Enjoy it. Keep the filaments warm, as I usually say. And soon you'll be able to do that. So, 7-3, everybody. We'll see you again from the Ozark. This is K9EID. Bye-bye for now.